So welcome everyone that is with us. This is, I think, going to be an interesting webinar. It's one that I've been thinking about for a little while here, just because we've gone into I don't want to say a strange space, because tech investments have always been tech investments, right? But I think that there's a lot changing in the angel markets, and that's probably something that everyone says every single year. But for me, as I watch it from, I'm not an angel investor. We just serve angel investors. I think that the pace of change seems accelerated, and that just might be my eyes. But it seems to me like the average software investment is no longer making the cut in the AI age, and that there are things that investors need to be on the lookout for when it comes to like deep tech and AI type investments. And I also want to define deep tech, but that's just, we'll get into all of that. So just like a little bit of housekeeping here. Let's start with Jethro here. So Jethro is the CEO and co-founder of Ritual Ads, an AI native commercial tech company leading the world's most advanced AI native creative engine for Fortune 500 companies. He started his career in 1999 working as a presidential research scholar in AI and video science at Dartmouth College. He served as the vice president of capital markets and financial communications for a publicly traded medical tech company. He's a former national board member for the Producers Guild of America and a Dartmouth graduate. He brings 20 years of experience across technology, production, and marketing, working with large brands such as Apple, Netflix, and American Express. He's also on the board of governors for Pasadena Angels and TCA Venture Group, leading AI R&D. He's also a trustee for the Polytechnic School, one of the top K-12 independent schools in California, originally the Throop Institute, which is also the origin of what is now known as Caltech. And now we know I had to read it. So here, moving on to Mr. John Lilley, and I'm going to pull up yours as well. So John, wonderful friend of mine and also neighbor, almost, considering how big the world is. But John has an extensive background in business management, both for large and small companies. He built more than 50 branded businesses in 25 countries over 27 years as an executive at Procter Gamble, and then as the CEO of Pillsbury Company. He started his career at P&G in 1976 and was responsible at one time or another for almost all of Procter's laundry, paper, food, and beverage brands. This culminated in a 6-year assignment as regional vice president in Frankfurt, Germany, where John had managerial scope for the paper and beverage businesses in P&G's Europe, Middle East, and Africa division. His P&G experience base includes responsibility for Pampers, Pringles, Always, Folgers, Gain, Duncan, Heinz, Sunny Delight, Dawn, and Tense. And that's just the first part. Now today, I don't... Sorry, I'm working on my reading. Sorry, I'm very, very exhausted.
It just tires me out just thinking back about it. My God, it was awful. Yeah.
Well, you do something more exciting now. You work exclusively as a full-time investor in early stage companies through Lateral Capital Management, LLC, and its associated limited partnerships. He is one of the country's most active micro venture capital investors. Lateral Capital has invested in more than 100 companies in 7 funds in a wide range of industries across 25 states. So and there's actually more to your bio, but I'm going to call it there.
Stop me before I invest again. Please stop me.
Yeah. And are you guys working on a new fund right now, or is that something that
We are.
Okay.
We're damned if we do and damned if we don't. We're going to keep doing this.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys. Thank you both for joining me. And I think to set a little bit of a premise for this conversation, AI and deep tech is something that you hear thrown around from a terminology standpoint quite a bit at this point. I don't know that there's actually a definition here, but what I'm trying to get at, that the thought for this conversation was that I look at what's happening with the angel investments and venture investments, and it seems to me that the high level stuff, the average fintech software, or the average, I've got an AI marketing software, I've got an AI this or that, is not really the direction that investors are trying to go. But then they look at things that are a little bit deeper under the surface, what I would call closer to like deep tech or more advanced technologies, or things that are more difficult to pull off, frankly, or develop. And I think that there's maybe a hesitance around understanding how to evaluate these investments for people that don't have backgrounds in that, because evaluating a fintech software is sometimes easier than evaluating, the next generation model of whatever the terminology would be. So that's the premise for this conversation. I think let's start and try to define what we mean by deep tech, because both of you have fairly technical backgrounds, both in what you do and what you invest in. So let's start there. What does deep tech mean to you guys? And let's try to define that term a little bit. And maybe Jethro, I'll have you start.
Sure. So pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. So for me, deep tech startups specifically can be a range of things, including advances in robotics or biotech or med tech or advanced materials or drones or foundational AI or quantum computing. Even it can be a verticalized AI at times if there's a deep technology moat or a significant breakthrough for an industry behind it. But deep tech, of course, being distinct from sort of this surface layer of tech that we're seeing that's becoming ubiquitous, especially as software is becoming easier and easier to recreate with advances like Anthropic's new models with Fable and Mythos, which allow you to recreate software in a matter of days, hours, or minutes sometimes. So as an investor, we're really looking at what are those longer term sustainable moats that can protect deeper technological breakthroughs. So for me, I like this concept of deep tech is really working the question of, will this even work, right? And that you as an investor, you want to be looking at the long term, prepared for funding and backing milestones with the knowledge that the first check should be the last. So really enabling yourself in your long-term visioning for it in terms of running the marathon, not a sprint. And I'll turn it to John for a better answer.
Oh goodness, I think deep tech is just a terrible word. I don't, doesn't mean anything to me. We don't pay any attention to it. It's just investor claptrap that you see online. I wouldn't spend a minute, to the investors out there, wouldn't spend a minute thinking about that. Go look for things that you believe can save the world and invest in the people who are behind those ideas. We do not invest in AI anything. That's the province of VCs. 80% of VC money in the first quarter of this year went into AI. God love them. They're going to do wonderful things. We don't do any of that. We are focused on real world technologies, small and big. But I would say and by the way, it's a wide range of things. And my advice to early stage investors is always the same. The fact that you don't know anything about any of that stuff is your number one weapon. Your skill is your lack of skill. You have the ability to ask questions that will unearth the failures far ahead of anybody who knows what they're doing in the technology area. You have to approach these companies as if you were just a third grader. If they can't explain to you what they do in third grade language, then don't invest in them, because if they can't explain it to you, they won't be able to explain it to a customer. So think of yourself as the proxy for that customer that they're going to have to sell this to. Another thing I would say about investing in technology, don't worry about the fact that you don't know how it works. You don't need to know how it works, and here's how we know this. Across 100 investments directly and another 150 of them through funds, the technology always works. That's never the problem. The problem is not the technology turns out to fail. The problem is that they haven't identified the proper customer. And that's where early stage investors bring another secret sauce. They have had experience talking to customers before in a way that most early stage entrepreneurs have not. So put yourself in the shoes of those customers and ask yourself, would I buy this? Is this something I would pay for? Because if you would, then maybe it's a good idea. Most of the time, however, you'll find out that you can quickly eliminate the technologies that don't fit, because neither you nor the entrepreneur can identify exactly who's going to buy this, what they're going to pay for it, and when.
Thank you. Those are two, I suppose, very different, maybe not different perspectives, just given Jethro's got the pretty heavy on the AI component. And so I'm actually interested to ask, I'm going to take us a little bit off agenda, so apologies in advance. But John, why do you not invest your funds into anything AI related?
We have 5 criteria for investing in companies. Finished product. We don't invest in the technology per se. We invest in the product that comes from the technology. Patents to protect it while it grows. We don't plan to enforce the patents while we are in ownership position of the business, but the people are going to buy the company, the big so-called, what we call the big co's, they love patents. Why do they love patents? Because they have legal departments. Legal departments love patents. That's what they do. Third is it has to have a path to cash flow break even. We will miss the next Uber. We will miss the next OpenAI. Uh, and that's the sea is filled with things to invest in. It's not like there's a shortage of great ideas out there. So if you don't have a path to cash flow break even, then it's not for us. Fourth, it has to be for sale to a strategic buyer. We're not interested in businesses that go public. Historically, companies that are invested in by early stage investors that go public fail right and left. And the reason is that once they go public, they're never quite big enough to define a market for themselves. The day traders take over, the stock price falls, and suddenly, all your hard work and all your investment is diluted to nothing. Final point is the most important one. It has to benefit the greater good. We don't invest in online gaming, in poly markets, we don't invest in sports, anything. We're trying to save the world one profitable investment at a time. I don't recommend these as the 5 criteria that every investor has to have, but every investor has to have some criteria, and you got to stick to them and not be drawn off by the next great idea that happens to crawl across your desk. What you're trying to do here is very personal. You're not, most early stage investors are not into this because they have to. They're into this because they need to. They need to do something important. And the work of early stage investing, of angel investing, is important work.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like it's a very holistic look on things. And also, I sense, at least, and this is just, again, my outsider's perspective, I sense that some angels who have not given very, very, very deep thought to their investment thesis have been roped into the AI hype bubble that we're in, I think still, except it's starting to materialize in a way that I didn't expect. And I think that your investment thesis actually lines up to the questions that I'm going to ask about what I do consider more like foundational technologies, things that are not on the top of other things. So I want to ask a question to Jethro here. As you guys, so you're leading R&D for TCA on AI, and I'm curious how you look at the development moat that you mentioned in the first question. Like, how do you look at an investment in AI particularly and say this one can withstand the rest of its competitors, or this one's doing something distinct, or this one's doing something that is meaningful relative to the broader market?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we look at, number one, which John mentioned, is the founder, right? We understand that when we're investing in an early stage company, that the concepts, the ideas, the products even are going to shift over the years, and hopefully the only thing that's going to stay the same is the founder. So that's the number one moat that we talk about, is the founder's moat, right? And then beyond that, the technology, we're seeing a lot of these AI wrappers, which are essentially large language models, diffusion models, or other models that are not owned or significantly participated in by the startup, but just with an API call or a front end to it, without any defensible data, machine learning involved, or even sometimes, so those are 2 layers that can be a moat at some level, or even a go-to-market that's been proven out can be a moat if it's significant and deep enough. So those are 3 moats. Another moat can be significant fundraising from institutional, but usually as angels we don't see those because it's too late. But those are the main moats, and many investors argue that there is no such thing as a moat these days, I think that, you know, it's a spectrum of grays, right? There are companies that are harder to recreate than others because the founder has a certain special sauce and they have certain data, and it's getting better and better with time, and it's super sticky because it's working in a way that's learning more and more with time. Physical physical AI is of course a mode in and of itself because it can't be reproduced as software. So these are some of the things that we look at. We also built, by the way, with TCA, a tool that allows investors to analyze. So we looked across 10 primary criteria that over the course of a decade, TCA has decided that these 10 criteria are the most important reasons to invest, or at least to consider when you're considering an investment. So we created, through an LLM. This isn't a technology that we're selling or anything like that. It was just something that we built internally, and it really helps us to get from an initial submission, because we get, dozens and dozens and dozens of submissions every month, to, like, it's a 24-hour a day intern that's at least trained on our own data sets, how we look at companies, et cetera. And it'll turn around, a 30-page document or a one-pager that just gives you a concise read on that company, so you can compare apples to apples, and a scoring system so that it's apples to apples. And that's helpful just in terms of taking a quick glance. But at the end of the day, each investor needs to do his or her own due diligence, and especially in an area of deep tech where we all may not have certain expertise. Definitely encourage to draw from your angel community's deeper expertise. So if you know someone that does have a PhD, bring them in with you. Maybe they'd be interested in co-investing, and you'll reap the rewards of their expertise and experience as well.
Thank you. And I wanted to ask too about, so John, you made a comment that that angels should not be worried about the technology not working out. And I'm curious how you look at, so like, I know your portfolio has at least a few health tech type companies. Can you talk about how you've looked at the diligence on those? And because those do have a, I don't know, failure rate, I suppose, or I assume, and I don't know this for fact, but I assume that healthcare type technologies, when you're developing new medical devices and those types of things, they have to go through regulatory approval. And if they don't get approval, I don't know what percentage of time that happens. But is there a case where that happens, and that's something that people should look out for in the medical space?
Well, there's 37 questions there, Alycia, but fundamentally, in med tech, like everything else we've had experience with, there is the technology doesn't fail. It works. It works almost exactly like the inventor or the founder said it would work the first time you met them. The problem is that they may have misestimated the market, and I don't mean size of market. I mean they were aiming in the wrong place. So what you're trying to do is figure out when you first see these technologies is there some pocket of different applications for which this will be valuable. On average, our investments pivot 3 different times between the going in product market fit and where they wind up. In nowhere is this like, do you see this in med tech? Give you an example. We invested in a company that has makes a device which allows an antibiotic to stay in the bladder for a long enough period of time to address UTIs. UTIs for women are a huge global issue, and it's just unbelievable how much pain and suffering this brings. And it's not that there aren't drugs available to fix it. There are. The problem is the drugs don't stay in the bladder long enough for them to work. So these guys developed a little device that allows the drug to dissipate slowly in the bladder, and allows it to kill the bacteria there over perhaps 3 weeks. Well, come to find out, though, that no one really cares about UTIs on the medical side. Why? Because they can't make much money from reimbursing it. There's no market here for insurance companies to pay for UTI cures. It's not profitable for the practitioner, and it's too expensive for the patient to pay for. So as a result, we just live with a lot of suffering. The company could have said, "Oh well, okay, that's it, that's enough. Let's close up." Nah, they didn't do that. They said, "Well, what else can go in the bladder?" And that we could focus on where our technology, our slow dissolve technology might work. Oh, I know, bladder cancer. Turns out that whereas UTIs are big in women, bladder cancer is big in men. And the same requirement it has to be addressed. You have to keep, and there's several approved anti-cancer materials, small molecule drugs that cure bladder cancer if you can keep it in the bladder long enough. And poof, suddenly this company's now in the bladder cancer business. Do I know if they'll succeed? Not quite yet. Do I know if it's a reimbursed market for which their practitioners can be paid? Absolutely. Is it a much better fit than where we started? Absolutely. But if we had decided up front we were going to try to cure UTIs, that was our objective, we would have failed miserably. So what you got to do is maintain this sense of wonder about, gee, that's curious. Wonder what we could do with what else could we do with this? You're most of the time you're never dead in these things. It's just a matter of finding the place that will accept and pay for your technological innovation. I could take you through chapter and verse on many of these, but Jethro said you talked about the key skills that you want to have in a founder. We don't bet on the founder's particular skill in a particular area. What we bet on is the founder's ability to pivot. Because we know 3 times they're going to have to pivot before they succeed. We want a CEO who is passionate, crazy about solving one problem, right up until the moment they figure out it's not profitable to solve. And then the next day they walk in and say, "Wow, we've got a new idea, a new product we can solve." You're looking for a horse that can run on many courses. It can run in the rain. It can run in the bright sunshine. And to do that, you need a jockey who's flexible enough to ride that horse wherever it goes.
I think that's a really fantastic perspective from both of you. And do you guys have, and again, I'm so sorry to take us off agenda, but the conversation is going in a direction that I mapped out my questions and now it's a little different.
Welcome to the world of early stage investing.
Yeah, I know. Here we go. And both of you are so I think what I'm hearing is that a lot of the same principles that have been true for angel investing, early stage investing for the last 20 years are still true and should still be applied to the same extent, even in this a little bit different new age of technology. When you're looking for founders and they're very technical, how do you deal how do you deal with evaluating founders that are highly technical, highly intelligent, not necessarily socially talented?
Well, I think if a founder is not socially talented, they need a co-founder that is. I think that's arguably one of the most important skill sets of a founder, because you've got to be able to corral a team. You've got to be able to corral additional add-on investors, and that takes people skills, and it takes influence skills, and it takes all of those soft skills. And so, to your point, I mean, there are sometimes 2 different people. It's rare that you get the same person that has both skills, although some do. But that's why they're co-founders, and that's why teams are in place. But I do think, to your point, it is very important that someone on the team be people facing and people focused.
Alycia, you're looking for a team of 2, and you only need 2. By the way, we tell investors, don't get caught up in the long list of advisors and all that. It's just mostly bullshit. That's window dressing. Don't get, just show me 2 people. Show me somebody who can close sales, not find customers, but who can close sales. and somebody who can make a product that works and ship it. If you show me those two people, that's what you need in that company. And I agree, Jethro, they're rarely the same person. You need a team of two.
And do you guys, that was actually one of my questions that I did have on the list, is if you're looking at a very technical type startup, and they have a list of, scientific advisors or a list of people that are, helping them on their on their pitch deck. We're just ignoring that part? John says yes. Jethro, what do you think?
I would say pick up the phone and call them, have a conversation, because any advisor that's worth their weight, or relationship between a founder and an advisor that's worth their weight, they're going to have some knowledge, and you really want to get that advisor's sense of the founder and the company and the problem and how closely and intimately they're working together. To John's point, oftentimes they are window dressing. In a few rare cases, they might not be, and you want to be able to identify the distinction between those two.
And your first question to that advisor is, tell me, have you invested in the company? If they're investors, that's one thing. If they're paid shills, who are bored and looking for something to put on their CVs, I'm not interested. Because, by the way, they don't help very much. I should point out, Alycia, the advice I'm offering here is not aimed at VC investments. That's a different world. It's a different thing. In that world where everybody knows everybody in the Valley, the advisor thing may mean something. What we find often, though, is that entrepreneurs who are not introducing AI something or other, they look at those pitch decks and they say, oh, I know what to do. I'm going to do this. No, don't do that. Just tell the story of your company. Just tell me what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, how much you think it'll cost, and how long you think it will take. You will be wrong on all fronts. And as an investor, it's my job to understand that. But on the other hand, what we're looking for here is the story. Remember, people don't invest in what you do, they invest in why you do it. Let's start with what interested you in this is going to be so crazy. We have a company who's learning to drill holes in the ground using plasma technology. The things that we find we really like best are the stupidest ideas you ever saw. These guys take a plasma torch, the kind of torch that's used to destroy garbage in industrial garbage processing, and they put it on the end of a stick, and they push it through solid rock. And guess what? It disintegrates solid rock. This is an unbelievable thing. And so the guy says, I got an idea. If we could just drill through the ground for miles at a time, we could run electric cables through those channels, through those tunnels, and we wouldn't have to hang them in the air. It'd be cheaper, faster, better. Now, can I tell you that this is going to work? That this is, no, absolutely not. But I'll tell you one thing, they've drilled one for 3 meters. That suggests they could drill one for 300 meters. They have countries all over the world who have rock they want to drill through, calling them to ask if they can drill through rocks in their country. And crazy PG&E has said, you know what? Maybe these fires that we keep having in California would be stopped if we put those cables across the air underground. So, in other words, I tell investors, and I hope anybody listening, this is not rocket science. I mean, I can tell you a lot about baby diapers and detergents, but I don't know anything about drilling holes in the ground. What I do know is I found a guy who felt an absolute urge to do. He needs to do this. He's crazy as hell. I'll just tell you, the guy he's nuts about this, but he will not stop. He's studied it fairly well. He's borrowed technology from every market in the world because he's an outdoors kind of guy, and he doesn't like fires in the woods. He thinks it's stupid, and he thinks cables across the outside are dumb, and that if we put them underground, we wouldn't have this problem. Okay, that may not be my why, but it's his why, and he's driven by this. And what you're looking for is an investor who is driven by something, because there are going to be terrible days as a founder. You're going to fail more days than you'll succeed, and you want to have that why is what's going to carry you through.
Jethro, any follow-up thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a beautiful that's a beautiful answer, John. I think because it also, even though I know you're saying that deep tech doesn't exist, we don't need to talk about it. But to some extent, it's the name of the panel today, so I bring it back to it. But that is a good example of deep technology in a very literal way, in that in that it's solving a real world problem deep in the ground. And it's a technological solution, and there is an implicit moat there in that not anyone can figure out the chemistry behind getting those, getting them drilled, and not anyone can corral all of these people, and not anyone has the kind of fuel in their heart that will drive them through all of these problems that are going to come in their path. And so those are some moats, and it's going to take, I don't know the whole story, John, but I would hallucinate that it's going to take this person much longer than they anticipate to get it done, and they probably won't return the money as quickly as investors may initially hope. But will it be worth it? I think so. I think it's a good bet.
And Jethro, that's exactly how we see it. By the way, investors out there, the old days of put my money in and 3 to 5 years later get it back, forget that. If you're not in this for a decade, you're not in it. Don't just count on the fact that it's going to take that long for these things to prove themselves out. It's a different time. And while this is so hard to get our minds around because everything else is speeding up, but investment return is slowing down. And it's slowing down because the problems are harder, and the resources are fewer, and the number of people like us who are behind them, are more important, because you're going to have to be with them. And on the terrible days, you need to be able to put your arms around that founder and his or her commercial partner or technical partner, as the case may be, and tell them it's going to be great. It's all going to be work. It's going to be super.
Actually, do you guys think that is a good, well, I would say net good or net bad thing? What's happening in the market in terms of timelines, in terms of the complication of problems that are being solved? Because I sense that, well, I won't answer the question, but do you guys think that that is net good or net bad for the industry, angel investors in general?
Well, I think, Alycia, there's just more problems in the world. We got more problems than we can shake sticks at, and they're very complicated to address. And so, I mean, from one perspective, this is great news because it gives angel investors from now until the end of time something to work on. I mean, I'm serious. You just look at the green economy. Look at the number of things we have to address to mitigate or postpone a climate disaster. It's unbelievable. So
Yeah.
it's just a different situation. And to the idea that the returns take longer to get, that's just a question of which pocket the money comes from. If you're investing out of your retirement account, well, then 10 years or 15 years is a fine horizon. If you're investing out of your checkbook, maybe not so much. But it means you have to change your mindset here. And the whole investment industry at this moment is distracted by the NASDAQ and the S&P. And that's great, super, but this too shall pass. We know this is not things don't go up forever. And by the way, a lot of the problems that a lot of those companies are solving are not nearly as important as addressing cancer in your grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
They're not near. I'm sorry to say that AI is not as important as addressing diabetes, in your mother.
Yeah.
And you can pick. As an investor, you can pick. Do you want to work on something that's temporal, or do you want to work on something that's important?
Yeah, and I think that there's this concern about AI taking away jobs because it's going to free up. I love John's perspective because what it does is it elevates the opportunities in the world. And so for me, if AI can free up human time, which is the most valuable commodity that humans have, we can start to invest our own time and capital in more higher level, higher order problems like solving cancer or
Agree
drilling.
completely. All this fear of AI, it's understandable. I mean, I get it. And you know, it's gonna get a lot worse. And we're rubbing our hands here for a long time to find a resolution for this, political or otherwise. But you're right, Jethro. I mean, it is not a good use of the entrepreneur's time to make spreadsheets, you know, to make 3 different projections about how sales could evolve for their widget over the next 10 years. It's just not a good use of time. I'd rather have them out meeting a customer. I'd rather have them be in the operating room with an orthopedic surgeon. I'd rather have them, you know, out there on the line figuring out how utility companies drill holes in the ground, because that's where that spark of insight is going to come from. And I agree with you, Jethro. AI is going to, you know, freeze up the time so you can go to work. People haven't been working, they've just been wasting their time. And AI is going to pick up a lot of that time waste. Well, it's true. It's true. We spent a lifetime in corporate, you know, America, you know, doing the same thing over and over again. That's stupid.
Yeah.
You know, we need new detergents, we need new baby diapers, and who's going to do that? It's entrepreneurs. Big companies, sports fans are not going to say this. So sorry to say, big industry, they're just not. They're not wired for that. That's not their job. The problems we're talking about solving are going to be solved by individual people who are crazy as hell, but who are bent. I have a deep, abiding personal reason for doing something.
And the why, I think the why is very deep, both for the founder, but also for you as an investor. Why are you investing in this investment? Because, you know, it's going to cost you an illiquidity premium, right? Like you're not going to be able to have access to your money as an angel investor tomorrow. So you might as well invest it in the stock market if you don't have a really compelling why, or if you don't have a set amount of money that you're okay with not accessing until retirement or you know, 5, 10, 15.
Jethro, absolutely right. If you are an angel investor to make money, just stop. No, that's not a good why. You know, that's not a clear why. You know, if you're an angel investor because you have something you think you can give back to young people the way somebody gave stuff to you as a young person, that's a good why. If you're an angel investor because you really want to get your minds around a disease state that's affected your family, that's a good why. If you even want to be an angel investor because you want to set a good example for your grandchildren or your children, that's a great why. But we say to everybody that there are only 5 questions in all of life. And the first one is, why are we here? Why are we doing this? And it's the question most people skip right over. They go to how. How are we going to do it? Because that's great. Doesn't require much thought. It's, you know, I can read all about it. It's fun to talk to my friends about on the golf course, you know, how I've done this and how I've done that. No one gives a shit. I want to know from those founders why. If you meet a founder who says they're doing it to make money, run. I'm serious. Because that's stupid. Well, who does something like that to make money? Okay. By the way, I'm sorry, this is way off the topic, but if you're in venture capital, you're not investing in those companies to raise because you want to make a lot of money. You're investing in those companies so you can raise the next fund. That's their job. Their job is to raise money from limited partners. And to do that, they invest in companies they think can provide them a track record that will give them the leverage to raise that money. The individual companies, you know, the individual whys for the companies, they don't share in that, and they shouldn't. That's not their purpose. So that's why I tell people, angel investing is a completely different thing from venture capital. By the way, angel investors don't become VCs, and VCs never become angels.
That actually leads us. Oh, go ahead, Jethro.
I was just going to add that the why is also important for an angel because it's going to take fortitude to double down on those deep tech investments, which are going to take a lot of time and a lot of challenges, and it's going to take longer than expected. And so knowing your why up front is going to help drive you through each of those rounds and each of the obstacles that inevitably will come in the way of that startup you're investing in.
It's
Yeah, and
what
that
sustains you on the bad days. You got to keep going back to, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Because remember, 52% of the companies are going to fail. They're going to fail. You'll lose all your money.
You're
So,
lucky.
but you're not looking for that. You're looking for that 10% of companies that changes the world. And by the way, an outcome from that is that you'll produce 2.5 times your money. And if I could promise anybody 2.5 times their money, they would sign up for that all day. The issue is they don't believe in it as angel investors because not enough people do enough of it.
Mm.
And Jethro, from Tech Coast, this is an issue is constantly reminding angel investors why they're in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, but it is very rewarding in terms of creating an ecosystem community, and also just it's I'm involved in Pasadena Angels, so it's exciting to see local founders and local companies really take root and see what that can do to a local economy and a local ecosystem. And that I can say on both sides, myself as a founder, those early beliefs, that those early checks that were written to me meant the world to me. I mean, I can't tell you how meaningful that is for someone to believe in you and your baby first, and take that leap of faith on you. And so for me, I really want to be in a place to be able to give that back to someone else as well.
And that's, by the way, Jethro, we've identified your why. We now know why you're doing this. Somebody did it for you, and that $10,000 check to you from a local person for whom that money was dear. That money was not, it didn't not fallen off a tree. That conviction, that investment in you changed you, and in a way that you really highly value, and now you're trying to provide that to the next generation. So you're saying it correctly, Jethro, that this is not a business for the faint of heart, but on the other hand, it is for a business for the big heart. You have to be doing this from your heart. Your financial advisor will tell you you're insane.
Yeah,
well, it's true. And by the way, another reason they'll tell you you're insane, they don't get any commission from it.
Yeah.
There's no fees in this that kick back to somebody.
Yeah, and that actually leads us, this is a good segue into our Q&A section, because the question that I have here from Nicholas is, in a world where some deep tech and AI startups are raising seed rounds at $500 million valuations, what is the role of an angel investor writing a $50,000 check? And how should angels think about capital deployment in a world of ever larger early stage investment rounds?
I think you have to be prepared to go the long run, the long journey, especially with deep tech, because it's going to be very large check sizes and typically a lot of rounds, oftentimes before there's a real market validation. So unlike with AI, where you can see a single person founder in 90 days creating a unicorn, in some cases. With deep tech, it usually does it takes a much longer time horizon, much more capital intensive, and typically more people and more resources involved to even prove it out. Oftentimes before you even have revenue generation. So it is, I mean, it is interesting to think about, what is that relationship of the very small angel contribution in proportion to the very large institutional investment that's going to come on. But like we said, as a founder, as an example, it's more meaningful sometimes to have an individual angel on your side earlier in the process than it is to have some institutional 10-figure investment, although that's pretty meaningful as well. But I wouldn't take it for granted. Like that first conviction can really make the difference to run the marathon versus retreating too early.
Nicholas, I would tell you to put your checkbook away. I mean, really, you're $50,000 in a $500,000 valuation. Forget it. That's not a good application of your hard-earned money. Because remember, angels are investing their own money. Venture capitalists are investing somebody else's money. It's a different thing. If you feel like you need to be part of that pathway, go invest in a VC fund. They're being founded every day. New ones constantly. They'll take your $50,000 check in a heartbeat. But if your why has something to do with changing the world, with affecting change, not just making money, then go look for a business for whom your $50,000 check is pivotal. Get together with 5 other angels and make that a $250,000 check. And go find something which is scaled to something you can help. There are dozens of medtech investments, for example, for whom $250,000 would be a meaningful number. And at a seed or pre-seed or even a Series A, they're going to have pre-monies in the $3 million to $10 million range. It's not so much the percentage of the company that you wind up with, it's whether you're going to be able to help them. You want to be, by the way, don't go on the board. They don't need board members. That's a governance role. They need people who are voting for them, who are supporting them, who can coach them, who can help them get through bad days, who can introduce them to customers, who can explain to them how different markets work, and that if you're going to sell wall coverings, you have to sell through 12 layers. It's a true fact. The wall coverings industry, commercial wall coverings, has 12 layers to sell through before somebody can give you a check. Help somebody understand that based on your personal experience, and your money will go a lot further because you will be a lot more valuable to that company.
Thank you. I have one other question in the Q&A at the moment, and it just says EarthGrid ? So I think, John, they're asking you if that startup that's drilling into the ground is called EarthGrid. What I assume.
It is.
Oh,
it's
okay.
called EarthGrid.
Okay. Well, we have an anonymous attendee who also knows that company.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd be interested but it's just a good example of a company that it is deep tech. Jethro's right. Excusing the pun, even Jethro's right. It's technology you wouldn't think about, but what I like about it is that it's repurposing something. They didn't have to invent plasma torches. They took a plasma torch from the garbage industry and put it and said, what happens if you shoot this at a rock? I mean, you're repurposing something that's already out there, and that kind of deep tech, if you will, is much more approachable by early stage investors, because it's not, you don't have to prove that the torches work. That's already done. What you have to find is a new reapplication opportunity for that product. And by the way, we see this all the time. Look for something where somebody's reapplying known technology in a new way or against a new market. Think of all the people in the gemcitabine business, which is a drug for bladder cancer. Think of how pleased they're going to be to find out that some guy, some trauma surgeon, figured out a way to put something in a bladder that dissolves over 20 days, 30 days. They're going to kiss these guys, and they're going to save a lot of lives in the process.
Thank you. And I want to leave it open for anybody else that might have questions. I do have one more question of my own, just given we have 5 minutes left and I'm going to use it. Is there a level of technical risk that angels should shy away from? So I know that we're talking about the people, the humans, the founders and their tenacity. Is there a level of risk where it does not the founder can't make up for that.
Well, if the world has to change, like if gravity has to change or the laws of the universe need to change significantly in order for the thesis to prove itself out, that's probably not going to be a risk worth tolerating. But I think coming back to the why, I think you can mitigate a lot of risks, and looking at risks is a really important step in the process as an angel investor or as a VC or as a private equity. In any investment, it's all about the risks. And I think especially as an angel, there's a step beyond the risk that says, is the risk bigger for me in terms of if I don't invest in this and if this doesn't happen as a result, and is that a risk I'm willing to take? And so looking at not just the risks of will you get your money back, but the risks that are involved on all sides. If you don't invest, if you do invest, if you do invest and it doesn't work out, if you don't invest and it does work out, if you don't invest and it doesn't work out as a result of you not investing, those are all worth exploring as well.
Yeah.
Alycia, risk tolerance depends a lot on whose money you're investing. If you're investing your own money, your why will tell you what risk is worth taking. If you have a child with Down syndrome, there's no risk you won't take to address a cure. If you're, and that's the kind of investment that makes sense for investors with their own money. If you're a VC fund and somebody comes to you with a crazy idea that might work for an AI application in improved lunch meat, you're investing somebody else's money. And by the way, you're going to make and Andreessen Horowitz has 600 portfolio companies. They're not betting on anyone to work. It's roulette. So, well, it just is. If you talk to Mark, he'd tell you that theirs is a numbers game, and they're investing somebody else's money, and somebody else's money is coming in more than they don't know what to do with it all. So, the answer to your question, Alycia, is it all boils down to why you're doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
And by any order of measure, as an angel, most investments are not going to pay off, at least not in a meaningful way. Even maybe most investments maybe won't go under, but that's debatable. But so you have to be willing to put in to at Pasadena Angels or at TCA, we have funds, so you can invest $10,000 in a fund of 10 or 15 different companies. And if that's, if you're looking to mitigate risk, that's one way to do it.
Amen. Great idea. Great truth.
And so, and we have members that have invested in 50 or 100 different companies as individuals. They write $10,000 checks, out of a few $1,000,000 that they have of investable assets. And over the course of years, they accumulate them. And some of them do have 50, 100%, 100 times returns. But more often than not, the wide majority do not pay off at all or very little. So I think going back to the why is really important, and also putting an individual investment in an overall strategy that you're employing.
Alycia, we say this to everybody: if you're not going to make 15 investments, don't start. Just keep the money. And this is arithmetic. Okay, this is from the 2007 study that said 52% of companies fail, 7% of companies produce 10x or more. On average, you will get 2.5 times your money, because the 7% that win at 10x or more. That produces a 2.5x on average. But if you're not going to invest in at least 15 companies, don't start, because 7% times 15 is 1. So Jethro's right. There are many angel groups have sidecar funds now, which are a very smart way to do it, because you can then observe with a bunch of other people what's going on. You can then top up on things that you want to add investment to. But, Tamiami Angels down in Naples, they're on their 5th fund. And this is a proven way to do it. And I would just tell you that if you don't feel capable to make choices and you don't want to do that, invest with a group of people who will be there with you. And that the kind of fund, sidecar fund that Jethro is describing is a great example. And by the way, you don't have to live in Southern California. We're members of TCA. Anybody from anywhere can invest.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, your
So
answer.
all right, we'll close it out there, guys.
Thanks, guys.
No,
Great to be with you.
no, thank you guys so much. And I'll send out the follow-up to anyone in about 2 weeks. And I don't know that this was the webinar we expected, but it was the webinar that we needed. So thank you guys. Have a good rest of your week and weekend. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alycia.
All right, bye.
Good job.